UN is the envy of the mafia. Imagine you wanted to set up a mafia organization. The ideal model is the UN. Your staff cannot be arrested by local law enforcement anywhere in the world. You cannot be sued in civil courts anywhere in the world. Child sex abuse, rape, drug trafficking. I remember a case of someone being caught with something ridiculous like a ton of marijuana in a vehicle, right? Drunk and disorderly, causing death by reckless driving, theft, anything criminal. The UN has to investigate that administratively, and these cases never end up in a criminal prosecution because of the immunity. Our estimate, a very conservative estimate, is that you're looking at least 6,000 rapes or sexual abuse cases by UN personnel against local civilians every year. Year on year on year. How many UN civilian staff have been criminally prosecuted for a sexual offence? One. Since they started prosecuting, since they started dealing with sexual exploitation and abuse. My estimate, extrapolating on figures that Guterres himself has stated in public, gives a very, very conservative estimate of 60,000 over the 10-year period in which Ban Ki-moon was Secretary General. 6,000 a year, at least.
Do you believe that that number is accurate?
No. That number is a gross underestimation of it. There was a study done by some academics in the United States which reported that in Monrovia, in Liberia alone, I reckon something like 50,000 local women reported some sexual encounter with UN personnel. 50,000. Now, okay, a lot of that may have been consensual in that it was commercial and that they were paid, but they wouldn't have been paid, they wouldn't have been doing it if they could feed their children in any other way. We know that in the Dakoa region in the Central African Republic in 2016, right, the Undersecretary General, the current Undersecretary General of Oversight, was complicit in covering up allegations of sexual misconduct. Because the most important thing is looking after the reputation of the organization. It doesn't matter how many women, children get raped. It doesn't matter how much of the budget is being embezzled or diverted. So long as we all continue drawing our salary and we all convince ourselves that the UN has a great reputation and we're doing good work. Where is the accountability? And the immunity is, in respect of sexual offences in particular, the immunity that the UN enjoys is functional immunity. There is no part of any UN official's job to be engaging in anything sexual with anyone else. So why are we even looking at this from the point of view of it being immunity? As soon as any investigation reaches a point where you have reasonable grounds to believe that an individual has committed an offence against the Sexual Offences Act of whatever local jurisdiction it is time for the UN to wash their hands of it and hand that individual over to local law enforcement to be investigated and prosecuted criminally. Oh, you don't like being investigated criminally by the Congolese police? Well, I'm very sorry, but that is the law in Congo. And if you don't want to run that risk, modify your behaviour accordingly. We have information suggesting that from law enforcement in the UK that child sex offenders understand the benefits of working for aid organisations because it gives them access to children in very corrupt third world countries. And I know from my time in OIOS of reports of statutory rape, of sexual exploitation of girls under the age of 16, right? And when the investigators arrived there, magically the girl's mother, who had made the complaint, had somehow found the money. Found the money to retain a lawyer to withdraw the complaint. Right? This is the reality of operating in countries where there's a very high level of bribery and corruption and low levels of confidence in local law enforcement. If you're arrested, you're detained in connection with a child sex offence in the UK, right? You're not going to buy your way out of it. In some of the countries where the UN is operating, a 5-year-old child being sexually abused, we can cover that up for $50, $100. I have no background in the investigation of child sex abuse. It wasn't my area. I was a fraud investigator. But I cannot think of anything more abhorrent. And if there is something more abhorrent than the sexual abuse of children, it is the way that the UN was manifestly unconcerned about it and was quite happy to cover it up.